Good morning or afternoon, everyone. CPOC. I returned to CPOC. I started CPOC, or I helped to start CPOC. So now I return to CPOC. Having spent yesterday in the office reading the agenda carefully, I've now learned that CPOC has evolved since the days when we used to only refer to it as the Bad News Committee. There was a small amount of good news that was in there too, so it was nice to see that it had both sides of the picture as well. As everyone is getting settled, shall we begin? No, that's fine. So, approval of minutes, please. Second. Any objections? Carried. Committee work plan. Comments, discussion?
There are no changes to committee work plan.
Comments from the committee members? Okay. Commitments, completions update. Ron, I think this is your show.
Yes. Okay. MTA committed $4.04 billion through September. This is 96% of the planned commitments. New York City Transit committed $1.73 billion, or 89% of its plan. This is due to award of $395 million in non-planned stimulus projects, mostly offsetting delay in the purchases of 23A division cars for Flushing CBTC for $75 million and 90 low-floor CNG buses for $62 million until December, and delay in award of Flushing CBTC for $348 million until March. Long Island Road committed $306 million, 140% of its plan, because of advanced commitment and a non-planned stimulus project. Metro North committed $203 million, 95% of its plan of $214 million, because of $50 million in non-planned stimulus projects, offsetting delayed final commitments for the Harlem and Hudson Lines power improvements for $42 million until December. Capital Construction committed $1.71 billion, 108% of its plan. This is due to award of non-planned stimulus funds, more than offsetting award of the Northern Boulevard crossing for $61 million until October. Bridges and Tunnels committed $19 million, or 16% of its plan. This is due to continued delay in award of the rehab of the RFK Bridge Building 104 for $67 million until December, the Bronx Whitestone concrete anchorage repairs for $7 million until November, and the Queens Midtown Tunnel building rehab for $11 million until 2010. MTA Bus has committed $17 million, or 28% of its plan of $61.8 million. It's mostly due to continued delay in award of new roof and ventilation system at Far Rockaway for $5 million until October, new roof and ventilation system at Eastchester Maintenance Building in Baisley Park for $10 million, and the parking lot at JFK in Baisley Park for $10 million until December, and emergency generator upgrade for 6 depots for $14 million until February. MTA PD has committed $1.6 million, or 16% of its plan. This is due to delayed commitment of the phased public safety radio design for $5.5 million, and the K-9 facility acquisition for $2.5 million until 2010. MTA completed $2.89 billion through September. This is 98% of the planned completions. New York City Transit completed $1.4 billion, or 85% of its plan. This is due to delayed completion of tunnel lighting rehab at 207th Street, 268th Street on 8th Avenue for $72 million until November, and Sonnet ATMA for $201 million, which is yet to be determined. Total value of delayed commitments was partially offset by accelerated acceptance of R160 cars. Long Island Railroad completed $134 million, or 60% of its plan of $222 million. This is due to continued delay completion of the Valley Stream Station rehab for $6 million until October, and the Atlantic Terminal for $101 million until November. Metro North completed $434 million, or 505% of its plan. This is due to advanced completion of the Harmon Shop replacement program for $357 million. Capital Construction completed $506 million, and 92% of its plan, and Bridges and Tunnel completed $406 million, and 95% of its plan.
Questions for Ron?
Yes.
If I can take the chair's prerogative, just to ask a couple of questions, if I may. There still appears to be a fair bit of work to do in the fourth quarter of this year. How confident are we about being able to achieve the work that is to take place in the fourth quarter?
Okay. Agency-wide, in terms of commitments?
Yeah, in terms of commitments.
Okay. We'll do by agency.
I'm not looking project by project, but just looking for your sense. Are we in a position where we should, in your independent judgment, feel confident that the numbers that are in here will be delivered over the course of the fourth quarter, which we're obviously midway through right now?
Right. I think it's fair to say that we have not achieved 100% of commitments in any of the last 4 years. We average around 80%. We've been averaging around 80% MTA-wide. And so in just looking at some of the major projects here, for example, in the plan, we talked about Flushing CBTC, which is a big number, 340 for transit. That's going into 2010, even though it shows here yet in 09, it's going into 10. So that's a big hole in the transit plan. And that's the major item. It looks like the Clara Hale Depot is still forecasted in December, and that's the other major impact on the plan. Whether they'll make that or not, I'm not 100% sure. Couldn't commit to that. In terms of the other agencies, most of the other agency projects have been within the plan. I'm just looking at some of the big ones. Some of the other agencies mostly are on track. The question with capital construction has to do with two reasonably sized projects that are scheduled to be let later this year, and they appear to be on track. So, by and large, we should do better than we have in the past.
That said, if I could just add to that, we've asked each of the agencies to, against commitments that were in the 0509 program, to tell us those that will, in their estimation, slip beyond 09, so that we can determine what kind of cutoff points to put, and that report will be available soon and will provide, I think, a little bit of a more fine point to your question.
I won't take a lot of time here, but one of the things that Linda showed people last week was a capital program dashboard, which looked at is intended on a going forward basis to look at the progress of the capital program perhaps slightly differently than we've looked at it before, really tracking back to some of our original statements about what we said we're going to do and having a way of measuring that as we go forward. And I think that's terrific, by the way. I think we should have that. We should make that accessible to people, and certainly is a commitment to doing that from the 2010 plan going forward. Applying some of that same logic to some of the charts that are in this book right now might introduce some interesting things as well, which we won't really have the time to do here. But certainly in my continuing discussions with Linda and Ron and the agencies, I'll at least be looking to get a little bit of a sense of that as we go forth. But clearly, the objective of making this type of information as transparent and clear as we can, giving people a sense to really judge our progress about how we are doing, I think right now in an era in which we're trying to rebuild the trust and confidence in our organization with people who are critically important for our future funding, should be a critically important thing for us to do. And so we will be working to do that.
Mr. Chairman, as someone who's seen the dashboard in action at the breakfast, I was very impressed with it. If we can get pieces of that into this book, because if you look at these things, it's hard to get a handle on how far you are on a project or how late it's going to be just by glancing at this. There's percentages, but it doesn't really give you. So that would be great.
Okay. Then if we complete item 3, I think we turn to Kevin and Al, right? You're first up.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Tomlinson. I apologize for the voice. I wasn't at the Yankee game last night, so sorry. And I am Long Island Railroad's Chief Program Officer With me today are Long Island Railroad's Executive Vice President Al Cosenza and Jim Castle of the MTA Independent Engineering Consultant Team. Today's presentation will provide a project overview and discussion on the risk assessment associated with the design and construction of the Morris Park Facility Upgrade Project. This project, which is included in Long Island Railroad's 2010 to 2014 capital program, was selected for a risk assessment because of its significant cost and complexity. First, I will go over a brief description of the project. The Morris Park facility, consisting of a locomotive shop and yard, is located approximately 1 mile to the west of Long Island Railroad's Jamaica Station. The facility encompasses approximately 23 acres and is the primary location for Long Island Railroad's repair operations for its 45 diesel passenger locomotives and 22 work locomotives. This photo also shows Long Island Railroad's Richmond Hill facility, where we perform the federally mandated 92-day periodic inspections on our 45 diesel locomotives, as well as maintain and repair our fleet of 134 bi-level coaches. This photo shows the current 100-year-old locomotive roundhouse shop at Morris Park. Also shown is the turntable, which is needed to enter the shop's maintenance bays. The turntable requires extraordinary maintenance to keep it operational. Because the building is too short to fully house the diesel locomotives, the roll-up doors must be kept open when repair and maintenance work is being done, even during the winter months. Long Island Railroad's current locomotive repair facilities are inadequate for efficient heavy-duty locomotive repairs, such as the repair of a locomotive skid, which houses the main engine and generator and weighs approximately 26 tons. In addition to the problem with the roll-up doors, there is insufficient lay-down room, as well as a lack of heavy-duty cranes to lift engine skids and drop tables needed to remove trucks from the locomotives. These inefficiencies result in higher overtime costs and reduced locomotive availability. The scope of this project includes a new, larger locomotive repair and overhaul shop with an enclosed component storage area to support shop operations and administrative space with a lunchroom, locker, and restrooms to accommodate approximately 105 personnel. The total facility will be approximately 47,000 square feet in size. The scope of work also includes the reconfiguration of existing yard tracks and the construction of new tracks to support this facility. This site plan shows the layout of the new facility superimposed on the Morris Park yard, including the new and reconfigured tracks leading into the facility, shown in blue. This rendering of the new facility shows the locomotive shop area on the right, which will include heavy-duty cranes and other support equipment such as drop tables, wheel truck turntables, welding equipment, and component cleaning tanks. The administrative area is on the left section of the building, and the material storage area is in the middle. The strategies for the design, which is now at a 60% level, include: first, locating new facilities to minimize community impacts without unduly restricting yard functionality. Second, designing the interior configuration to maximize efficiency and worker productivity. Third, specifying equipment that optimizes functionality, maintainability, and reliability. The last design strategy pertains to sustainability, which is discussed on the next slide. This facility will be designed and constructed to meet the criteria for certification issued by the U.S. Green Building Council Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, better known as LEED certification. Some examples of sustainability initiatives for this facility include natural daylighting and ventilation, rainwater harvesting, which allows for washing of locomotive parts and the flushing of toilets, and energy-efficient lighting. These initiatives were found to be cost-effective and were selected after due diligence that included lessons learned meetings with New York City Transit regarding its recently constructed LEED-certified Corona subway car maintenance shop. Additionally, the Long Island Railroad is looking for grant opportunities to fund additional sustainability initiatives such as solar panels. This part of the presentation deals with the project risk assessment. The risk assessment process is a collaborative effort among the Long Island Railroad, MTA Office of Construction Oversight, and the IEC. The major elements are identifying, quantifying, prioritizing cost and schedule risks, developing related risk mitigation plans, and establishing contingencies proportional to the risk in order to increase confidence in the budget and schedule. Before discussing the specific cost and schedule risks, I would like to briefly provide a description of the risk assessment model used in this process. Based upon the risk assessment model, this chart shows the range of cost risks that are associated with probabilities of their occurrence, referred to as confidence levels. At the beginning of this process, the initial baseline estimate of $81 million was increased to $91 million due to revised scope requirements such as additional wheel truck turntables, security system, and train movement alarm systems. Based on the model, this revised cost represented a 25% probability of being achieved. As a result of the risk assessment, the process identified additional costs and contingencies to increase the project budget to $107 million. The new budget provided an 80% confidence level that it would be achieved. This same approach was utilized for the schedule assessment, resulting in an 80% probability that the project would be completed in 45 months in lieu of our initial base schedule of 30 months. After implementing mitigation measures, we reduced the risk assessed estimate by $10 million and the schedule by 12 months, resulting in our current projected construction cost and schedule duration of $97 million and 33 months, respectively. While the post-mitigation and schedule estimates are still higher than the baseline estimates, these increases now provide us with an 80% confidence level in our project. I will now discuss in greater detail how we were able to reduce the primary cost and schedule risk impacts. This slide shows cost and schedule risk elements which are the same, although they are not ranked identically. The rankings are done prior to the development of the mitigation plans. The risk elements are poor contractor and poor Long Island Railroad performance, specification issues, unforeseen site conditions, and problems securing competitive pricing. Shown here are the four major risks and their related mitigation plans. Also shown are the cost and schedule impacts due to the risk assessment and the post-mitigation. The first major risk is poor contractor and Long Island Railroad performance, which without mitigation resulted in an increase of $8.2 million and 7 months to the cost and schedule estimates. I'll explain. The single most important measure to mitigate the risk of poor contract performance is a comprehensive RFP procurement process in lieu of the formal competitive bid process. The RFP process allows selection based upon the ability to perform as well as price. Among the items that the selection committee will consider are proposers' specific experience with similar projects, proposers' project team, and their project plan. Each item requires an individual assessment. As a result of our mitigation plan, the increases to the project costs were reduced by $6.9 million to $1.3 million, and the scheduled 7-month delay was reduced to 2 months. Also, a related risk is Long Island Railroad's performance issues, which can be manifested by Long Island Railroad's failure to perform timely reviews of contractor submittals, failure to provide the project site on the expected date or the expected condition, or failure to provide the necessary track outage times. These risk elements can extend the duration of the schedule and hence impact project costs. The mitigation plan is for Long Island Railroad to demonstrate during the RFP process that it will meet its obligations to support the project plan. This mitigation by the Long Island Railroad estimates the remaining 2-month schedule, eliminates the remaining 2-month schedule delay related to this risk. The second major risk element is specification issues, which when quantified added $3.3 million and 1.5 months to the project cost and schedule. These issues can result in change orders or disputes and claims, include errors and omissions, unreasonable specifications such as limited access to the project site, along with vague or incomplete specifications. The mitigation plan includes ensuring that during the design development there is both a solid quality assurance plan as well as an active involvement in our internal stakeholders. One of the key focus areas of our stakeholders is the testing and commissioning plans. Also, the risk of incomplete or inaccurate specifications will be further minimized by extensive discussions with proposers regarding the draft specifications during the RFP process. As a result of these mitigation measures, the risk, cost, and schedule impacts were reduced to $2.6 million, and the additional 1.5 months was eliminated. The next major risk category is unforeseen site conditions, which prior to the development of the mitigation plan resulted in a cost and schedule impact of $1.9 million in 1 month. Whenever a project site is an old active rail yard, you have a risk of soil and underground utility issues. To minimize the risk of such conditions being classified as unforeseen, there are a number of measures we have taken. Long Island Railroad has performed extensive subsurface borings to evaluate the condition of the soil and conducted greater due diligence to locate existing underground site utilities. For example, by an investigation of the current existing sewer system via videotape, we determined a replacement was not required. These mitigation measures reduced the risk impact by $1.3 million to $600,000 and eliminated the 1-month risk schedule increase. The last major risk category is problems securing competitive pricing, which when initially quantified added $1.1 million and 3 months to the estimated cost and schedule. Because Morris Park is a complex project being constructed in an operating environment with many variables and unknowns, there are risks of limited competition and excessive price contingencies. To mitigate these risks, Long Island Railroad plan is to both conduct an aggressive outreach for experienced contractors who have performed similar work and to engage proposers in a dialogue that ensures the contract documents are reasonable and not too broad or restrictive. Long Island Railroad will also utilize a request for expression of interest process that allows discussions with prospective proposers prior to the RFP solicitations in this project. This measure will ensure that the specifications is not too extensive or restrictive, thus increasing competition. The contract could also be reduced in size or remove some of the rolling stock support equipment. As a result of these mitigation measures, the cost and schedule increases were eliminated. Overall, while the risk assessment and mitigation process increased the project budget and schedule from $91 million to $97 million and from 30 months to 33 months, respectively, Long Island Railroad now has greater confidence in its accuracy of their estimates. To fortify our confidence level, we will be undertaking the following next steps in the risk assessment process. The first is to meet with our internal stakeholders to review and, if necessary, revise the project risk and mitigation plans based upon the recently completed 60% design. Next, we will also perform value engineering and constructability reviews. And the third step, prior to the RFP solicitation, we will engage in prospective proposers in a dialogue regarding the preliminary draft specifications. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Again, if I can offer a couple of thoughts. I think the process of trying to move from a P25 or 30 confidence level to a P80 confidence level is a critically important thing to do. Obviously, one would like to do it without increasing the cost. So to simply end up with additional costs moving from 91 to 97 as increasing our confidence level doesn't fully achieve the objective that's there, and I know Long Island Railroad staff are intent on trying to further reduce that element. Can you put the presentation back up? There are 2 points that in our if you go to page 8, if you would, there are 2 points in our internal discussion around this that I wanted to share with the committee. I think the design strategy that is laid out here, particularly points 2 and 3 about maximizing efficiency and worker productivity, and installing equipment that is maintainable and reliable, are critically important elements in the design of a new facility for which we're spending $100 million. One of the ways that at least I would hope that we would see this is in a reduction in our operating cost. That if we're going to put $100 million into the facility, we should be able to eliminate the type of inefficient working practices that you're forced into in a 100-year-old facility, and be able to generate and show the productivity that can come from adopting a modern facility with modern work practices. And so in our internal discussion, I have asked Long Island Railroad, before this project moves further, to come back on the productivity benefits that we should expect to see as a result of this significant investment that is being made. I think in the time we're in right now, where we are clearly working with limited resources to do the best we can, we need to take every opportunity to improve the productivity of our operating agencies. And one of the ways that we need to do that is through our capital investments.
How much of that, if any, without knowing, is related to the difference between labor agreements for which work rules are there because we have a 100-year-old facility, which obviously has been there over that period of time while those negotiations took place, and labor agreements which may come in the future, which would now reflect a brand new facility in which one would assume there would be differences in work rules. How much is that part of this being looked at also in that regard?
It absolutely needs to. It is part of the process of engaging our labor force in this process, and I think your point is absolutely on target, Mitch. And in fact, as Kevin has laid out, I think quite eloquently, there are a number of benefits for our workforce in the new facility that are being created. We need to see this show up all the way through in the process, but we can't build facilities and continue to keep old processes that were built off inefficient practices. So I think that's just an effort that I'm encouraging for the railroad. Helene and I had an opportunity to speak about it last week, and I know that she will be working to look at this as well. But this is just one example. We may have many coming up, but this happens to be one that I looked at in that way.
Can I just ask, Kevin?
Yes.
The locomotives that are serviced at this yard serve which branches?
All branches.
All branches?
Yes.
And is there another facility where these same locomotives are serviced? I mean, do you do anything at Arch Street or?
No, this is the only place where
we
maintain our diesel fleet.
This is it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And obviously, if I were wanted to say it, the diesel fleet has obviously been one of our not maximum productivity with regard to our fleet. We all understand that it has issues, and one would hope that would also be a outcome of this, because otherwise, I mean, not to say that is a reason to build the facility. You obviously have to upgrade the facility, but obviously the commuter is also hoping that they're going to get better diesel service, of which, because of financial constraints, diesel service is going to be with us for a substantial period of time as a result of an investment in maintaining the diesel fleet. So you also have to look at what benefit does the commuter get for that, for this investment, based upon that scenario also, which is of course of great importance to them, because every month we see the significant difference in the service levels between the diesel fleet and the non-diesel fleet.
Yes,
I know
yes,
that.
Jay. On this, there's an issue with the overhaul of the diesels, and that this shop will be ready after the time that it is to overhaul the diesels. So I think it's important that we get this shop online as soon as we can, and functional. Which is I'm happy there was value engineering here done, and to make sure that it's going to be on time. But I think we're very concerned, the commuters are very concerned, at least people in diesel territory, we hear it all the time, of how bad service is because of the reliability of the diesel fleet. And I wouldn't want to see that decline because we can't overhaul the diesels. So I think it's imperative that this be a top priority.
Nor would I. I'm sure it'll be taken on as a top priority by Long Island Railroad now. Sure, Jim.
I just following up on your point, Jay. I'd just ask Ron or Linda. My recollection is that we have raised in the past the cost benefit issues with regard to capital expenditures, and tied into the 20-year needs assessment and in prioritizing capital projects as we go forward. Now that is that process obviously is still going on. We're going to try and maybe get that in a more open forum so that it can be fully appreciated.
It's a prescient question. What we are doing is we've, in fact, are going to reinvigorate the process for 10 to 14, and before projects go forward, in fact, we're asking for the cost benefits. They're in the program, but there'll be what we're calling a gate to go through, and the first one of which will be the documented cost benefit, which will be available for board members or anyone to see before a project is actually approved to move forward. So that it's in the instructions for the capital program. It's going to be reinvigorated and going to be part of 10 to 14 projects.
Terrific.
And on a personal basis, I strongly support that. We should be able to put down on a piece of paper, look at it analytically, and feel comfortable with what we're doing. There's an awful lot of intuition that goes into this, and a lot of operating knowledge that's there, but we shouldn't allow that to overwhelm the process of having an analytical cost-benefit analysis. So I would strongly support that. If I can make one other point, just very briefly. The next page, page 9, Kevin has talked about our strategy in regard to sustainability, and again, on a personal basis and for the organization, we have a strong commitment to sustainability in the facilities that we are building. What became apparent in some of the discussion we were having is that we may not have as much consistency in the way that we're actually evaluating sustainability and what is referred to at the bottom as cost-effective sustainable investments or initiatives as we might like to. So I've asked Linda if she would please seek to establish a consistent process for us as we look at that, and know that as we're looking at facilities across different agencies, be it New York City Transit or Long Island Railroad or Metro North, that we're evaluating them in a way that we can all feel comfortable that statements such as this are consistently being applied. In no way am I making a comment about that this is not. I truly don't know, but it did appear that some of the detail behind this, including the discount rates that we're using, the manner in which the time frames in which we're looking it over, are not necessarily being applied on a consistent basis across the organization. So I had asked for that as well, and I think Long Island Railroad will be providing that information for this, but Linda will be looking at it more generally.
Kevin, have you already done the soil analysis under the Morris Park Yard? Has that been accomplished already?
Yes, we completed 44 borings prior to the 60%, correct, yes.
And no untoward findings?
No.
Such as under Sunnyside Yard?
Correct, no.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to clarify, I did answer your question for Andrew about these trains serve all branches. We have diesel locomotives serve our diesel branches, but the work trains do work on all branches, because they, just so I want to make sure people are clear on that. No problem.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Just one quick question on the siting. I noticed that you have siting the facility to minimize impacts to the adjacent residences. Aside from where it's physically located, which looks to me like it's actually closer to some of the residential community, although I would guess that since this thing is going to be closed instead of working on it with the doors open, that there'll be a benefit from a contained unit. But are there other mitigation measures that are proposed as part of this plan to help protect our residential neighbors there?
We designed it to be as far away from the neighbors where it is, as far away as possible.
Aside from where it's sited itself,
right.
Are there
we
other
did
components?
Part of the project was to demolish an existing building that was already there. Mm-hmm. So we're actually, if you want to say, moving it east and further away from the neighbors. So what they had before, it's actually better than what they had before. I hope that answered your question.
Well, I think it was what would the impacts be?
What will the impacts be?
Yeah, other than what we could see on the map, will there be any other? Because it said to minimize the impacts. I was just wondering, are there any other impacts on the neighboring community other than?
We haven't, looked at anything putting sound walls in. I mean, it's going to be an enclosed facility, a building.
No, I understand
So,
that. I've just it mentioned it in the document. I'm just wondering what it's referring to.
Okay, our intent was to try to keep it away as far away from the neighbors, the adjacent
Okay.
property owners as possible, and that's what we did. We shifted as far east, railroad east as
Right.
possible.
Okay.
Presumably you have to keep in place the existing repair facility until you finish this? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, correct.
So if you look at page 6 of this thing, the existing facility is inside this yellow wavy line on the right?
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry.
Right now we're performing the work for our diesel equipment in 3 different locations, which is part of the inefficiencies. When we build this building, we'll be only doing diesel work in
And the
2 of
three
the facilities.
locations are on this site where?
I'd like to, let me just go back to, if I go back to slide 2, it'd be better. I apologize. They're being done in Richmond Hill and Morris Park. They're 2 adjacent yards. They're just on 2 different elevations. So Richmond Hill is actually a bit north of the railroad at a higher elevation, so it's adjacent to it. We're building the new facility in the Morris Park area.
And I can see that.
And closing Richmond Hill?
Richmond Hill will be some coaches only. We've had to take space away from the coaches in order to address the diesel fleet up there.
Again, I mean, 6, it appears to me, has sort of a little bit more detail in terms of being able to see what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But you're ending up with, again, your sort of yellow circled spaces are empty when you're finished. Is that true? You're not using them for something, or you're using them for something else?
Are you talking about this area here?
Yeah, what are you using it for when you're done?
Well, eventually, our plan is that in future capital programs, we'd like to build a Y track in here.
Yeah?
We'd like to build a Y in here to help facilitate yard operations.
And
And we can remove the roundhouse and remove the old turntable.
so you're going to build one track through that area?
Well, it'll be just a Y. We have all these tracks up here and these connecting tracks to the one.
Yeah.
And we'll have a Y here, and there's yard tracks along here also.
Yeah. How about the area between you and the residence that runs up to the left in this picture?
This area here?
Yeah, what do you do with
is
that?
Storage of material. We have operating departments that work in this yard down here, and this is their compound.
And is that true now, or that?
It is true now. We're actually, we're condensing it a little bit. It's sitting, right now, it's probably sitting like here. It bends out a little bit. So we're actually condensing it, pushing it a little bit up. We're not extending any further closer to the neighbors than it already is.
I guess I just sort of wondered about the use of space in terms of the yard, but I guess that's the answer. And the other question was on the sustainability. I mean, you mentioned this question of looking for grants or something for solar electric panels.
Correct. Yes.
Grants from whom?
NIPA is one we're looking. We have
And-
requests out now.
And you don't think they're cost effective for yourself, but you're looking for somebody else's money to pick up the difference? Is that what you just said?
It's not our intention, but we're just looking at all opportunities.
Yeah, I think what we did in the other sustainability initiatives that we selected, their total cost of about $600,000, and they have a payback of 5 to 7 years. With solar panels was looked at, it had a payback of 15 years.
And a useful life of?
It's at least 15 years. But one of the things, and I think the chairman mentioned that, is that we need to get uniform measurements. We did this based on our own sense that we wanted to pay back 5 to 7 years. We did not necessarily require a payback for the useful life.
I guess my basic problem is if you don't think that a particular investment is cost effective and you can get somebody else's money to pay for it, could you get that money for something else
Right.
that you actually thought was cost effective?
It's a matter of it's maybe cost effective, but in terms of our operating budget and all the strains we have, we felt we needed the pay back sooner. So it's a matter of, ultimately it's a matter of sometimes if you can borrow money, it may be worthwhile, but if you can't borrow the money, it's not worthwhile. It was decided in a context of our financial situation, not a theoretical cost-benefit analysis.
Good.
Thank you.
I think the point's well taken, and I think we need to dig in a little carefully to some of that. Okay, thank you very much. The next item is the independent engineers report on the Long Island Railroad Capital Program. I had the opportunity last week to meet with the independent engineer. I'm sure no one on the committee needs a reminder that, of course, the independent engineer works for us. So it is actually important that this is a direct dialogue that we are having with the independent engineer, consistent with the statutory basis for this committee, and I was happy to be able to have my first dialogue. We're going to do this on an exception basis. Is that correct? We're taking it as read, and you're going to highlight things that you want to bring to our attention?
That's correct, Mr.
Thank
Chairman. I'll report on 3 projects within the Long Island Railroad's program. Next slide, please. Those 3 projects are the Atlantic Avenue Viaduct, the MTA Police Facility at Central Islip, and the fiber optic network. Next slide. We'll start off with a notable success project, and that's the Atlantic Avenue Viaduct project, which is tracking to come in 2 months ahead of schedule, on budget. It has a great safety record. Third-party contractor has not had a safety incident in over 500 days of construction, and most importantly, track has been returned to service consistently from the beginning of the project. So this is a fine example of a well-run project. Next slide, please. The police facility at Central Islip. We had a concern with potential loss of time resulting from potential errors and omissions on the part of the design consultant. There's a potential for a 4-month delay. Long Island has elevated this both internally and with the designer to assure that there will be no further issues that could result in a further degradation of the schedule, and we think those are the right steps forward. Next slide, please. And finally, the fiber optic network. There's a schedule, a loss of schedule of about 12 months due to the bankruptcy of the equipment supplier. And our concern is just making sure that whatever warranty issues there may be in transitioning from the original supplier to a new supplier are worked out, and this is on the railroads. It gets good visibility from the railroad, so we don't anticipate any further issues here. Any questions on any of these projects or any of the projects in our report?
Is there any possibility on the Central Islip MTA Police Facility to regain the 4 months lost? That project is not only very important to MTA Police, it's very important to the local community. And the question is whether or not there are any ways in which we can regain the original schedule.
Well, an analysis would need to be performed as to whether acceleration by the contractor, what the cost is, and what the potential benefit is. It's most important that they get a handle on the design aspects first to make sure that you don't go forward with acceleration and then lose more time. So it would be our recommendation that if they believe acceleration could achieve cost savings, it be done after the design issues are put to rest.
And the design issues will be put to rest in what period of time?
I'll generalize there because I'm not close enough to know exactly, but it needs to be done within a period of time so that any issues that remain do not affect the construction schedule. So whether that means it needs to be done the next 2 weeks because those construction activities are in 3 weeks out, whatever it is that tracks with the schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I pick up briefly on the same project? We are showing a schedule slippage here and a design question on this project, but we don't show any budget impact in our report. Are we confident that that's the result?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the independent engineer in regard to the Long Island Railroad program?
On the fiber optic network, which is scheduled, I believe, now for December 2010 for completion, is there any other projects that would be delayed because of that delay? It's something dependent on the fiber optic network, signaling projects or others?
It might be better, Kevin?
Yeah. Okay.
Not to my knowledge. I'll get back to you, but
Okay.
off the top of my head, I don't think there is any right now.
Sure.
Most of those issues have to do with equipment that's already been purchased. So it's not really, this North College issue is not an equipment issue. Going forward, it's the warranty issue on that equipment.
Okay.
And also finding new information to replace, new equipment to replace it, and the compatibility with that equipment, with the North College equipment. But we don't see,
You don't see a problem with other projects that may depend on a fiber optic network? Communication projects, passenger communications, or even signal projects?
No.
No? Okay.
I don't see an issue at this time.
Other questions on the independent engineer's Long Island Railroad report? Okay, thank you. If I can make a slight shift in the order of this agenda, I would prefer to do the capital construction if we can ahead of the TBTA. I know that Michael and the independent engineer want to speak on a number of topics in the MTACC area, so I'll turn it to them if we can.
Okay, good. We're going to report on projects within the 2nd Avenue Subway program, the Fulton Street Transit Center, and East Side Access. So starting off with 2nd Avenue Subway, our first area of concern. Next slide, please. Centers around procurement. In general, on average, we're finding that RFPs have been taking on order 12 months in duration, and there's a particular RFP in 2nd Avenue that's scheduled for an 8-month duration, and we believe that there may be some exposure there to the overall schedule as a result of past performance. The agency has responded by saying that they are establishing intermediate milestones throughout the RFP process. They'll be able to more closely manage the procurement process, and believe that taking into consideration the experiences of the past, they'll be able to meet an 8-month procurement duration. Next slide, thank you.
Mike?
Yes.
Before we... Oh, go ahead. So you're going to say the same thing I am, so go say it.
I don't know that I am, but so now that you have a response from the agency, we don't know how you respond to these things. It sort of leaves it out in the open.
Okay. Good point. We're in agreement with the steps that the agency has taken. This is a much more proactive position with respect to procurement that has been done in the past, and we're optimistic that this could, in fact, be the key to tightening up the procurement cycle.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is in the area of real estate, and specifically as it relates to the 86th Street open cut and utility relocation contract. We've made a recommendation for capital construction to advance a contingency plan to mitigate any potential delays here, and to initiate a lessons learned program on the cost to cure process for the future. The agency is in agreement with that recommendation and have been working proactively to finalize the agreements with the various property owners who are affected within this particular area. So we're satisfied with their response to our concern.
Go ahead.
Jay?
You want to go, Jim?
Yeah. I'm interested in the lessons learned aspect of this, because I think that in a large organization like this, that solutions can and oftentimes are found for daily problems, and the solution then just gets washed away, and there is no, if you will, agency-wide benefit from that. Is there a formal process for both, as is suggested here, going through the lessons learned procedure, but then somehow locating those lessons in a place that is commonly available, so that to all other agencies, so that the benefit of the learning is in fact shared and built upon in the future?
I can't respond as to whether or not those lessons learned are actually shared with the other agencies or not. What I can say is that we track those issues so that subsequent real estate actions, we follow up and make sure that those earlier lessons learned are being addressed in the future. But the other issue I can't answer.
Let me add to that. Excuse me. At the MTA, we have created a group of meetings of chief engineers. We meet quite regularly. Kevin, you gave me your throat issue. Excuse me. We meet on the average of at most quarterly, but sometimes monthly, and we discuss a whole host of issues, and we share lessons learned. For example, Long Island Road signals projects. You recall the issues we had there. We had a whole lessons learned menu. We got all the agencies together, all the tech people at the right level, and we met and conducted that. We have had sessions on commissioning, life cycle commissioning. Transit has organized some lessons learned on improving commissioning practices, which each agency contributes to and builds upon. So there are many areas that we do that, and so we try to maximize the lessons learned. Just again with these periodic meetings of the various chief engineers.
Checklists are the sort of thing that can kind of institutionalize and regularize that process as well.
Well, the only thing I was going to add is that obviously, the relationship here between the real estate issues and the construction issues are intertwined, because for a substantial period of time now, and not just on 2nd Avenue Subway, but more relatively on 2nd Avenue Subway, delays which have occurred are, in some people's opinion, based on other people's actions or non-actions, as the case may be. A perfect example at the moment is the blasting issue, which has significantly delayed the project, and depending on whose point of view you have, is either our fault or their fault. But regardless of whether it's our fault or their fault, it has substantially delayed the project. And therefore, it's our fault, because the perception obviously is that the project is delayed, and it really doesn't matter whose fault it is. We gave an anticipated schedule, and that schedule is not going to be met. So the question relating to the real estate issues, and obviously as more of these projects are done, more and more of the real estate issues come to the forefront, you have a dilemma in trying to put together a reasonable schedule at the beginning with substantial uncertainty, because many of the actions that we want to take, we cannot take because somebody else has to do something first. And if they decide to take 4 months instead of 1 month, or, because we assumed they were going to take 1 month and it now takes 4 months, we now have a substantial delay, and that delay is not only on that piece, it affects the next piece, which starts later because of that. So that's why these issues are so important going forward, and the issue of the, sustainability of the lessons learned are so important to correlate it to the extent they can be. Otherwise, we're going to do this the next time we do it again. And as I said, it doesn't matter whether it's, the individual building on 87th Street's fault. It's not their fault. It's our fault, because we screwed up from the beginning. And that's a concern that I have in regard to the real estate issues and putting them into a reasonable schedule from the beginning.
Did you want to say something, Mike?
I just wanted to comment on one thing about lessons learned. We are about to go live with an intranet for all the employees at MTACC, in which lessons learned are posted. So that is, we have a special category where this type of things are there, so everyone could share, so we'll not repeat it in various projects and going forward. So that is being done as we speak. The other important lesson learned that has to do with the fragile buildings that we have been exposed around along 2nd Avenue is that we have established a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Buildings, so this type of things will not fall between the cracks. This is the issue that 94th Street and 2nd Avenue is clear, in which each one pointed the finger, and you are correct. The problem lies with us, eventually, irrespective of the fact that these buildings were in poor shape from '88, and shame on us that we have not been able to identify that during the design process. That has changed. Going forward, the designers have an obligation to alert us if there are issues, and therefore we'll work together with DOB to address them much earlier rather than when we get there, so to speak. So these are things that have been done, and one would be able to read them online for us. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The next program is Fulton Street Transit Center, and in the area of the budget, our concern centers around establishing or having the confidence in budget certainty, as the last two packages of this program get procured. Those two packages are the Transit Center enclosure and the Corbin building restoration. The Corbin building part has recently been, bids have been solicited, so when bids are open, there'll be cost certainty there. Our concern is that the Transit Center enclosure, being more of the mission critical of the two, we need to assure that there's enough money in the budget to complete that element, and we've recommended that Capital Construction take steps to assure themselves and us that there's enough money in the budget to complete both pieces. They have gone out and brought in an independent consultant to give them a market estimate, and that information is expected next month and before the Corbin building bids are received. So there'll be somewhat of a better level of confidence in what it'll cost to complete both pieces of this program.
I thought this was in the bag. It's not?
What we're doing is we're accelerating the design process in order to get most of the contracts under contract early on. Right now, the building industry, as we all know, is experiencing, in effect, problems. There are bidders out there looking for work. Some of our last projects were really very successful in getting bids below budget, and the way we will ensure the financial, let's say, certainty that we'll get good bids is to bid them as early as we can. I think that the concern here has been what happens if, for whatever reason, we get an unreasonable bid. I cannot answer you at this point because I don't expect that to be the case. But we are, Bovis, by the way, is our construction manager on site, and they are, as you know, one of the premier construction managers for buildings, and we expect them to do a secondary estimate to in effect, validate our original estimate. So at this point, we expect to be able to deliver the project on time, on budget. In fact, we are accelerating. So we expect all our contracts to be, in fact, bid and awarded in the first quarter of, just between the first and second quarter of the next year. So by May 2010, everything will be under contract.
Thank you.
The next area is with respect to schedule, and it's time for capital construction to update the completion schedule for the Fulton Street project, and ensuring that all of the critical activities and milestones and the critical path are identified. This is a recommendation that they agree with and will be doing in December.
Can I ask you a question? How much of the schedule for Fulton Center is dependent on PATH completing their part of the deal? I mean, the RWE connector relies on PATH or the Port Authority to be so far along with their new terminal, does it not?
No, it does not. We expect to go under contract soon on rehabbing the RW southbound, and in fact, we'll be opening before the end of the year the northbound. So we are not. There is one piece that
talking about the connector now, Mike.
You're talking about the E-connector?
Yes.
The E-connector is one piece that is outside this because that is going to be done, actually, most probably performed by the port.
That's what I'm...
Yes, that's separate and apart. If you recall, when I made a presentation last May, I kept that aside because this is going to be done by the port and is going to be dependent on their schedule.
Do we know how close they are to their schedule?
Can report on it next time around.
Okay.
At this point, I
Thank
don't.
you.
Okay, and finally, in the area of commissioning, we note Capital Construction has recently completed a testing and commissioning plan for the AC mezzanine and JMZ vertical circulation contract. Job well done. Our recommendation is to do the same thing for the rest of the program, which will go a long way towards validating ultimate acceptance of this program upon construction completion. And Capital Construction agrees with that. Any questions? Okay. East Side Access, I'm going to have my Senior Project Manager, Kurt Edgar, address those.
East Side Access, we have 4 items. We're going to start off with the final design schedule. We recommended that The project has workshops with the Long Island Railroad to obtain outstanding information, which is critical to bring the signal design to a 30% stage in early spring. The MTACC responded that they are developing additional milestones leading up to this 30% design, and that they are confident that with this additional monitoring and additional controls that they will be able to bring in the 30% design on time. Any questions? All right, moving on to the final design project management. There is one decision outstanding, a major decision outstanding, which is the number of system contracts. That number could range between 2 and 5 contracts. We were encouraging them to make this decision early, to basically being better able to evaluate the cost and schedule impact by this decision. MTACC responded that they are on track to make this decision in November, and that since the current schedule assumes 5 contracts, fewer contracts can only improve the schedule, the overall project schedule. Market conditions. This is a lessons learned that we recommended coming out from previous contracts. We wanted these lessons learned applied to systems contracts, since it can be anticipated that in the New York market in the near future there will be a lot of systems work out, and the MTA needs to be careful not to outbid itself. So MTACC responded that they have identified the issues of the industry resources and market capacities, and that they will join the independent engineer and the OCO in an interagency meeting to review and phase system works planned over the next few years. The last item is Herald Structure 1 schedule. Herald, this contract is currently going through a rebaselining, and during this rebaselining, certain design and construction work that is impacting the duration and of this job or this contract needs to be considered, and we wanted to remind the project team that during this rebaselining, the impacts of design and construction delays has to be incorporated. MTACC responded that they are working closely with the designers to basically catch up on the design, and that work that is required by the contractor to bring the project or to keep the project on track will also be considered in the rebaselining. That was the last of the 4 bullets for East Side Access.
Questions on the East Side Access report? Okay. May I ask one question, which you did not choose to report on the South Ferry Terminal project, yet if I'm reading the report correctly, and I may be misreading it, we have an $11 million budget problem that is there. Am I misreading the report?
No. No, and the reason that we did not address that today is that had already been addressed at this committee meeting previously.
So is there a resolution to it that does not involve putting in an additional $11 million?
Is that for the Peter Minuit part of it?
That's correct.
I do not believe it's for the Peter Minuit. I'm not.
Square Plaza. That's exactly what I'm.
The Pyramid Plaza has, if I'm correct, about a $2 million issue.
No, Peter. I would call your attention to page 5-19.
I don't have.
Am I misreading the report? It has a current budget of $9 million, and it has a forecast completion of $21 million.
There was there's an agreement between New York City Department of Transportation and MTA in which New York City DOT is putting in $10 million. We originally put in $7 million, and there was an additional $2 million that were agreed by your predecessor, by Lee, to add $2 million, and there is a memorandum of understanding signed by both parties to $19 million. Since that time, there was some additional costs that were incurred due to some change orders that occur in the field, primarily field conditions, and changes in design by the designers hired by DOT, and we are now in discussion with DOT as to what we do for the additional $2 million and change.
So am I correct to understand that New York City bears the risk for this, or am I misunderstanding your statement?
Actually, the Pyramid MOU states that when we're going over the $19 million, there will be a discussion between agencies to figure out how they can bring the cost back to 19. And we have actually, just this morning, I have sent an email to Jeanette Sadikan regarding this matter and hope to meet, and we had some ideas as to how to cut the cost, the $2 million overrun.
Okay. I would certainly encourage the following. We should work out a joint agreement with New York City. We should not look to any additional funding for this project, and if we need to reduce the scope to stay within budget, we should reduce scope to stay within budget, but there is no more money available.
Pretty clear.
I'm only going by what, I'm not sure what's in the piece, but the bottom line is we have to be able to stay within a project budget, and we don't have more money.
Just a comment on, I'm not sure, I mean, I understand where the chairman's coming from, and I concur from a fiscal perspective, but if part of that is to, I would hope that part of the design, if it were to be cut back in some way, would be not to be putting commuters who are coming out of the Staten Island Ferry out into the rain or weather conditions in order to be able to access the facility. So I just, in terms of modifying the scope, I don't want to see.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just trying to make a point that I think we've established a project budget. There's a discussion to take place with the city, and I hope that discussion will take place in the eye to either additional funding coming from another source or working within the project budget to achieve the functional objectives of this project. That would be my request.
Okay.
I know that we're out of time, and the diversity committee is about to meet. It's really a question for the committee. We could hold the bridges and tunnels report until the next meeting, if that would be acceptable, or we could run over. I guess I would vote for the former, but I want to check with colleagues. Okay. Then with that, I think there's a question of any other business. We stand adjourned. Thank you.